Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's presentation. I'm excited to have you here. Today, we'll be exploring the classification of plant kingdom. This is the first slide, which serves as an overview of what we'll cover. We'll look at how plants are categorized and understand the different groups within the plant kingdom. So, let's dive in and discover the fascinating world of plants together. Now, on slide 2, we see a list of different plant groups. Let's go through them together. Starting with algae, which are some of the simplest aquatic plants. They are usually single-celled or have simple multicellular structures and are important for aquatic ecosystems. Moving on to bryophytes, these are non-vascular plants like mosses, liverworts, and hornworts. They don't have true roots or leaves, but they play a crucial role in soil formation and moisture retention. Next, we have pteridophytes, or ferns and their relatives. These are vascular plants that reproduce via spores, and they represent an important step in plant evolution because they have true vascular tissues. Following that, we encounter gymnosperms, which include conifers and cycads. These are seed-producing plants with exposed seeds, typically in cones, marking a significant advancement in plant reproduction. Finally, we have angiosperms, the flowering plants. They are the most diverse group, producing seeds enclosed within fruits, and they dominate many ecosystems around the world. Connecting all these groups helps us understand the evolutionary progression from simple aquatic forms to complex terrestrial plants with advanced reproductive strategies. Let's take a closer look at algae. Algae are incredibly important organisms in our ecosystems. They come in many shapes and sizes, from tiny phytoplankton to larger seaweeds. One of their key roles is being primary producers, meaning they convert sunlight into energy through photosynthesis, forming the base of many aquatic food chains. This process not only supports marine life, but also helps regulate oxygen and carbon dioxide levels in the water. Algae are also valuable to humans because they are used in various industries, from food and cosmetics to biofuels. Understanding algae is essential because they have such a profound impact on environmental health and sustainable resources. So, as we explore their various functions and benefits, keep in mind how integral they are to our planet's ecological balance. Algae are fascinating organisms that are chlorophyll-bearing, meaning they can carry out photosynthesis, and they are generally simple thalloid structures. They are autotrophic, so they produce their own food, and most of them are largely aquatic, thriving in water environments. When we look at their size, they vary quite a bit from microscopic unicellular forms like Chlamydomonas, which are just single cells, to colonial forms such as volvox, which form small colonies. Then there are filamentous types like Ulithrix and Spirogera, which grow in long, thread-like structures. One of the most interesting aspects of algae is how they reproduce. They have multiple methods: vegetative, asexual, and sexual. Vegetative reproduction usually happens through fragmentation, where a piece of the alga breaks off and grows into a new organism. Asexual reproduction involves the production of spores, specifically zoospores, which can disperse and grow into new algae. Lastly, sexual reproduction occurs when two gametes fuse, combining genetic material and leading to the formation of a new organism. All of these features, diversity in form, size, and reproductive strategies, highlight how adaptable and resilient algae are, making them a key part of aquatic ecosystems and an important subject in our study of plant-like organisms. Now, moving on to the classification of algae, we see that it is divided into three main groups. First, we have the rhodophyceae, which are commonly known as red algae. These are important for their unique pigments and their role in marine ecosystems. Next, we have the phaeophyceae, or brown algae, which include kelps and are crucial as habitat creators in ocean environments. Lastly, the chlorophyceae, also called green algae, are quite diverse and closely related to land plants. These classifications help us understand the diversity of algae and their different functions in ecosystems. Recognizing these groups is key to understanding their ecological importance and evolutionary relationships within the plant kingdom. Let's take a closer look at the green algae, which are often referred to as chlorophytes. These algae are characterized by their green color, primarily due to the presence of chlorophyll and B, which are essential for photosynthesis. Most members of this group have one or more storage bodies called pyrenoids, located within their chloroplasts, and these structures play a key role in storing starch. An interesting point is how these algae store food, mainly in the form of oil droplets, which can be an energy reserve for the organism. When it comes to reproduction, vegetative reproduction usually occurs through fragmentation, meaning a part of the algae breaks off and grows into a new organism. They also reproduce asexually via flagellated zoospores produced in specialized structures called zoosporangia. This method allows them to disperse efficiently in aquatic environments. Sexual reproduction, however, shows a lot of diversity among different species. Some are isogamous, meaning the sex cells are similar. Others are anisogamous, with different-sized gametes. And some are oogamous, involving a large non-motile egg and a smaller motile sperm. Examples of green algae include familiar organisms like Chlamydomonas, Volvox, Ulithrix, Spirogyra, and Chara. All of these highlight the diversity within the Chlorophyceae class and underscore how these algae fit into the broader picture of plant-like organisms in aquatic ecosystems. Let's talk about brown algae, which is commonly known as Phaeophyceae. These algae are rich in chlorophyll A and C, as well as carotenoids and xanthophylls, giving them that characteristic brown color. When it comes to storing food, they mainly use complex carbohydrates like laminarin or mannitol, which serve as energy reserves. In terms of reproduction, vegetative reproduction happens through fragmentation, meaning parts of the algae break off and grow into new individuals. They also reproduce asexually using biflagellate zoospores. These are pear-shaped, with two flagella that are unequal and attached laterally. Sexual reproduction in brown algae can be quite diverse. It's often isogamous, where the gametes are similar, anisogamous, with differently sized gametes, or oogamous, involving a large, non-motile egg and a motile sperm. Some common examples of brown algae include Ectocarpus, Dictyota, Laminaria, Sargassum, and Fucus. These species highlight the diversity within this group and their importance in marine ecosystems. Understanding these features helps us grasp how brown algae adapt and thrive in their environments, connecting to the bigger picture of algal diversity and ecological roles. Let's talk about Rhodophyceae, commonly known as red algae. These fascinating organisms are well known for their distinctive red pigment, arphycocyanin, which gives them their characteristic color. One interesting aspect is how they store food, primarily as Floridian starch, which closely resembles amylopectin and glycogen in structure. This similarity helps them efficiently manage their energy reserves. Red algae mainly reproduce vegetatively through fragmentation, meaning they can simply break into parts that grow into new organisms. They also reproduce asexually using non-motile spores, which is quite efficient in stable environments. When it comes to sexual reproduction, it's a bit more complex. It's oogamous, involving a large non-motile egg and a motile sperm, and it's usually accompanied by intricate post-fertilization developments, making their reproductive cycle quite interesting. Some well-known examples of red algae include Polysiphonia, Porphyra, Gracilaria, and Gelidium. These species are not only vital ecologically, but also economically, especially because some of them are sources of agar and other useful compounds. Connecting this to our overall theme, red algae exemplify the diversity and adaptability of algae types, highlighting their importance in ecosystems and their various uses in industry. Now, let's turn our attention to bryophytes. These are a fascinating group of plants that include mosses, liverworts, and hornworts. They're usually small and non-vascular, which means they don't have the complex systems for transporting water and nutrients like other plants do. Because of this, they tend to thrive in moist environments where they can absorb water directly through their surfaces. One key point to remember is that bryophytes play an important role in ecosystems. They help retain moisture, prevent soil erosion, and even contribute to soil formation. Also, they're quite unique because they rely on water for reproduction. Their sperm need to swim through water to reach the eggs. So, understanding bryophytes helps us appreciate how plants have adapted to different environments and how they fit into the larger picture of plant evolution. Now, let's explore the reproductive structures of some of these fascinating plants. The male sex organ is called an antheridium, and it produces biflagellate anthrazoids, which are essentially motile sperm cells with two flagella. On the other hand, the female sex organ, known as the archegonium, is flask-shaped and produces a single egg. When the anthrazoids are released into water, they swim towards the archegonium to fertilize the egg. This process results in the formation of a zygote, which then develops into a multicellular body called a sporophyte. Some cells of the sporophyte undergo reduction division, or meiosis, to produce haploid spores. These spores can germinate and grow into new gametophytes, continuing the life cycle. Moving on, let's talk about amphibians of the plant kingdom, specifically bryophytes. These plants can live in soil, but they are still dependent on water for sexual reproduction. Their body structure is thallus-like, meaning they have a simple, flat body, and they can be prostrate or erect, often attached to the substrate by unicellular or multicellular rhizoids. Importantly, bryophytes lack true roots, stems, or leaves, which sets them apart from more advanced plants. They produce gametes, which makes them part of the gametophyte generation in their life cycle. This reliance on water and their simple structure highlight their position in the plant kingdom as some of the earliest land plants, bridging the transition from aquatic to terrestrial life. Let's take a closer look at the classification of bryophytes. As you can see here, bryophytes are mainly divided into two major groups, mosses and liverworts. Mosses, which are often more familiar to many of us, belong to one group, while liverworts form the other. These classifications are important because they help us understand the diversity within bryophytes, which are among the simplest land plants. Recognizing the differences between mosses and liverworts also sheds light on their unique adaptations and ways of survival. Throughout this presentation, we've been exploring how these plants fit into the larger picture of plant evolution, and understanding these classifications helps us appreciate their evolutionary significance. Grow usually in moist, shady habitats such as banks of streams, marshy ground, damp soil, bark of trees, and deep in the woods. The plant body of a liverwort is thalloid, meaning it has a flat, often lobed structure rather than true leaves and stems. Asexual reproduction in liverworts occurs mainly through fragmentation of the thallus itself, or by forming specialized structures called gemmi. These gemmi are tiny, lens-shaped structures that detach from the parent and can grow into new plants, helping the species spread efficiently. During sexual reproduction, the sporophyte develops and differentiates into three parts: a foot that anchors it, a seta which is like a stalk, and a capsule that contains spores. After meiosis, spores are produced inside this capsule. When these spores germinate, they develop into free-living gametophytes, which are the main photosynthetic stage of the liverwort life cycle. An example of a liverwort is marchantia, which is often used in studies to understand these processes. So, in essence, liverworts are fascinating because they have both asexual and sexual methods of reproduction, ensuring their survival in moist, shady environments. This dual reproductive strategy is a key part of their adaptability and success in such habitats. Now let's take a closer look at the moss life cycle, starting with the protonema stage. This stage develops directly from a spore and appears as a creeping, green, branched, and often filamentous structure. It's essentially the initial growth phase, and from here, the plant transitions into the leafy stage. The leafy stage develops from the secondary protonema as a lateral bud, and what's interesting is that it consists of upright, slender axes that bear spirally arranged leaves. This is the stage where the moss actually becomes more recognizable as a plant, and it's also where the sex organs are produced. Speaking of reproduction, mosses primarily reproduce vegetatively through fragmentation and budding, especially in the secondary protonema. This allows them to spread and survive in various environments. The sex organs, called antheridia and archegonia, are located at the tips of the leafy shoots, facilitating sexual reproduction. When fertilization occurs, the zygote develops into a sporophyte, which is composed of three parts: a foot, a seta, and a capsule. Inside the capsule, spores are produced after meiosis, which will eventually disperse and grow into new protonema, continuing the cycle. Some common examples of mosses include Funaria, Polytrichum, and Sphagnum. These plants play important roles in ecosystems, especially in water retention and soil formation, tying into our broader theme of plant diversity and adaptation. Let's take a closer look at pteridophytes. These are fascinating plants that occupy an important place in plant evolution. They are often called ferns and their relatives, and what makes them special is that they are seedless vascular plants. This means they have a well-developed vascular system, allowing them to transport water and nutrients efficiently, but they do not produce seeds. Instead, they reproduce via spores, which are typically found on the undersides of their fronds. One key point to remember is their life cycle, which involves a dominant sporophyte generation. This is the leafy fern we usually see, while the gametophyte stage is much smaller and less obvious. This alternation of generations is a hallmark of all vascular plants, and pteridophytes are a prime example. Connecting this to our overall theme, pteridophytes represent an important evolutionary step. They bridge the gap between non-vascular plants like mosses and more advanced seed plants. Their ability to grow taller and transport water efficiently set the stage for the development of seed plants later on. So, understanding pteridophytes helps us appreciate the evolutionary innovations that led to the diverse plant kingdom we see today. Now, let's look at the reproductive structures of pteridophytes. The gametophytes, which are the haploid phase, bear both male and female sex organs. The male organs are called antheridia, and the female ones are called archegonia. When the male gamete from the antheridium fuses with the egg inside the archegonium, it results in the formation of a zygote. This zygote then develops into a multicellular, well-differentiated sporophyte, which is actually the dominant and most visible phase of the pteridophyte life cycle. As we move further, the spores play a crucial role. The megaspores and microspores germinate to produce female and male gametophytes, respectively. Examples of pteridophytes include species like Psyllotum, Selaginella, Lycopodium, Equisetum, Dryopteris, Pteris, and Adiantum, which you may be familiar with. Now, focusing on the main plant body, it is the sporophyte. This sporophyte is well differentiated, meaning it has true roots, stems, and leaves. It also possesses specialized vascular tissues that help in the conduction of water, nutrients, and food throughout the plant. The sporophyte bears sporangia, which are often found on leaf-like structures called sporophylls. Sometimes, these sporophylls are arranged in a compact structure known as a strobolus or cone. Inside the sporangia, spores are produced through meiosis in specialized cells called spore mother cells. When these spores germinate, they give rise to the gametophytes, called prothalli, which are the sex organ's next generation. In summary, the life cycle of pteridophytes involves a fascinating alternation between the gametophyte and sporophyte, with the sporophyte being the dominant, recognizable plant form we see, equipped with all the key structures for growth and reproduction. Let's take a closer look at gymnosperms. These are a fascinating group of plants that include some of the oldest living species on Earth. Unlike flowering plants, gymnosperms do not produce flowers or fruits. Instead, their seeds are exposed, often on cones or other structures, which is a key characteristic that sets them apart. They have adapted to a wide range of environments, from cold mountains to dry deserts, showcasing their resilience. Gymnosperms play a crucial role in ecosystems. They provide habitat and food for many animals, and they also have significant economic value, especially in timber and resin production. Understanding gymnosperms helps us appreciate the diversity and evolutionary history of seed plants and how they've contributed to life on Earth over millions of years. In gymnosperms, the male or female cones, also known as strobili, can either be born on the same tree, like in Pinus, or on different trees, as seen in cycas. The cones that carry microsporophylls and microsporangia are called microsporangiate or male strobili, while those bearing megasporophylls with ovules or megasporangia are known as macrosporangiate or female strobili. The process begins when pollen grains are released from the microsporangium. These tiny grains are carried by air currents, And when they come into contact with the opening of the ovules on megasporophylls, fertilization can occur. After fertilization, the zygote develops into an embryo, and the ovules mature into seeds. An important point to note is that these seeds are not covered, which is a key difference from other seed plants. Moving on to the overall diversity, gymnosperms include a range of plant forms, from medium-sized trees to tall, majestic trees as well as shrubs. Their roots are generally taproots, which help anchor them and absorb nutrients effectively. In some genera, like Pinus, the roots form associations with fungi called mycorrhiza, which aid in nutrient exchange. In others, such as cycas, specialized roots called coralloid roots are present, which house nitrogen-fixing cyanobacteria, playing a crucial role in nitrogen fixation. The stems of gymnosperms can be either unbranched, like in cycas, or branched, as seen in Pinus and Cedrus. Their leaves can be simple or compound, adapted to their environments. Lastly, gymnosperms are heterosporous, meaning they produce two types of spores, haploid microspores and megaspores, which develop into male and female gametophytes, respectively. Overall, gymnosperms are a fascinating group that showcase diverse adaptations, from their reproductive structures to their root and stem systems, all contributing to their success in a variety of habitats. Now, let's turn our attention to angiosperms, which are also known as flowering plants. These plants are incredibly important because they make up the largest group of land plants today. What really sets them apart is their flowers, which serve not only for reproduction, but also to attract pollinators like bees, birds, and even bats. This mutual relationship helps ensure successful pollination and seed production. Another key point is their ability to produce fruits, which develop from the flowers. Fruits serve as a protective covering for the seeds and help with seed dispersal, whether through animals, wind, or water. This combination of flowers and fruits makes angiosperms highly adaptable and efficient at spreading across diverse environments. Overall, angiosperms play a crucial role in ecosystems and agriculture, supporting countless species, including us, by providing food, shelter, and habitats. Their evolutionary success is really rooted in these fascinating reproductive strategies that we've just discussed. Now, let's discuss what happens after pollination. Once pollen grains are dispersed from the anthers, they are carried by wind or other agents like insects or animals to reach the stigma of a pistil. This process is called pollination. Once on the stigma, one of the male gametes within the pollen grain fuses with the egg cell inside the ovule, resulting in the formation of a zygote. Simultaneously, the other male gamete fuses with the diploid secondary nucleus to produce a triploid primary endosperm nucleus. This unique process is known as double fertilization and is characteristic of angiosperms. As a result of fertilization, the ovules develop into seeds, while the surrounding ovary tissue transforms into the fruit, which helps in seed dispersal and protection. Now, focusing on the female reproductive organs, the pistil or carpel is key. It comprises an ovary, which houses one or many ovules. Inside each ovule, we find highly reduced female gametophytes called embryo sacs, which contain important structures like the egg apparatus, comprising one egg cell and two synergids, along with 3 antipodal cells and 2 polar nuclei. Turning to the male side, the stamen is our male reproductive organ. It features a slender filament topped with an anther. After meiosis, the anther produces pollen grains, which carry the male gametes necessary for fertilization. Both pollen grains and ovules develop within specialized structures called flowers, and after fertilization, seeds are enclosed within fruits, aiding in seed dispersal. Finally, to understand the diversity among flowering plants, we classify seeds into 2 main groups, dicotyledons and monocotyledons. Dicotyledons have 2 cotyledons in their seeds, while monocotyledons have only 1. This distinction is fundamental in plant taxonomy and helps us understand the different characteristics and adaptations of these groups. In summary, these processes, from pollination to fertilization to seed and fruit development, are central to the reproductive success of angiosperms and highlight their remarkable diversity and evolutionary adaptations.